You are listening to Digging In Podcast, presented by Rooted Wealth Advisors.
Welcome back to another episode of the Digging In Podcast. I'm your host, Kinch Kelly, helping you get those questions answered to and through retirement. Today, I have snagged our events director, Jacqueline Walter. She's been on a whirlwind tour, hosting and helping hold events in I don't know how many states and time zones you've been in, but I'm glad your frequent flyer miles allowed you to come home for a little bit.
So am I. It's fun to wake up in your own bed, to know what state you're in your own bed, in your own home. It's nice.
I'm sure your husband and your dog greatly appreciate that you are home for a hot minute. It's been a whirlwind. For those of you that don't know, we've opened up an office in Denver, and with Jacqueline being our events director, she's been bouncing back and forth, trying to get that office and that advisory team up to speed, hosting events there, here, and just about everywhere in between.
Yeah, it's a good time. I do love it. It was just a really long stint of being gone, and so being home for a little over a month is a nice reprieve.
That's right. And in between that, you're also doing massive party planning between that, trying to get ready for client events, our ambassador excursion, which is coming up, which is going to be phenomenal. So I'm glad you have both feet on the ground and that you're able to take a breath and have a minute to chat with me today.
Same. I'm glad to be here.
Now, what I wanted to talk about today, I read an interesting article in the Daily Journal just the other day, and I wanted to run it past you because you are, let's see, what's the nicest way to say this? You're not our average client's age. I feel like that's a fair way to say that, right? As a retirement planning agency, we work with a lot of people who are 55 to 72, even in their 80s, right? The goal is to be their financial advisor until they pass away. But what happens with the next generation, right? And you're like of the age where your parents could be clients, right? My parents could be clients. And so what does that look like for the next generation? We know that there's a lot going on with Social Security, with Medicare, but even like just the day-to-day bills. The article in the Daily Journal from Monday, September 11th said, led with the headline, Illinoisans pay more for household bills. The report comes from Doxo, and it reveals that the U.S. average household spends $24,557 annually on essential household bills, which is 35% of the U.S. median income of $70,784. That's roughly $2,046 a month, and Illinois residents pay on average $900 more a year than the national average.
Yeah, it's staggering. And as a 30-something Illinois resident, it's a struggle. Inflation is killing everybody across the nation. Mm-hmm. And Illinois always gets a bad rap for everything. Mm-hmm. Sports, political climate, actual climate.
Yeah, some of it's earned.
Right.
Some of it's undeserved.
Absolutely,
but some of it's
absolutely.
earned.
It's easy to ride the train.
Mm-hmm.
But our utilities are insanely high. Salaries are not going up accordingly. Mm-hmm. And what used to be the American dream mm-hmm. of the husband goes to work, the wife is the homemaker, the kids live the happy life and ride their bikes up and down the street till dark is absolutely not the case anymore. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know that it would be possible for me to stay home with the kids at this point in time. Like a 2-income household is absolutely necessary, and you still struggle. Mm-hmm. And that's today, not even thinking about retirement or anything like that. Sure, you know, my retirement contributions pull every time from mm-hmm. my paycheck. Thankful for that, because otherwise it wouldn't happen.
Right.
And I pride myself on being I'm really anal retentive. I am a perfectionist. I like the budget. I like the line items. I like the lists. But then life happens mm-hmm. and it doesn't always fit in the box.
Right.
And so I know that would be the first thing to go. And it has been. Mm-hmm. I mean, coming from a different industry that I worked in for more than a decade, I saved $0 for retirement. That wasn't an employer-sponsored plan. That wasn't even on the radar. We didn't have health care. So just having those offered now is a huge blessing, but I'm super behind the 8 ball, and I don't know if we can even get caught up. So it's a little concerning.
Well, and I feel like that is very common, and it's not something that we talk about. And as we engage with our clients' kids, right, the next generation that we hope to help here at Rooted Wealth Advisors, and we encourage those clients to bring in their kids to their next meeting and stuff like that. And I understand you don't want to share everything, but maybe like they need to know what the financial landscape holds for them. But it is maybe not the easiest conversation to have, but I do feel like you're not alone. I know some of the struggles there as well. We joked about when your son joined the Marine Corps that your water bill got cut in half, right? Like, good thing he's serving our country, but like now the U.S. taxpayers are responsible for his water bill and not you alone solely.
His healthcare as well. I mean, you know, pulling off of that family plan, unfortunately, was a blessing. You know, I hate to see him go. Love him terribly. But that was a weight lifted that we didn't even realize was there because we were just doing the thing, living life, caring for our family. And it's sad that that's even a consideration when you see that happen and the car insurance drops and all of the bills go down and our grocery bill dropped significantly, losing a 20-year-old young man. And for that even to be something that's noticed is a shame.
Well, it is. And as my kids grow, and I noticed the other day, I was like, oh man, they're eating a lot. I was like, are they all growing? And sure enough, we measure our kids, you know, we got the whole measuring stick. And of course, my son has grown an inch in the last month. My middle daughter's grown about the same, like a half inch. And even the smallest one, she's on a tear right now. And I'm like, oh boy, this is only getting more expensive. And I'm notorious for not only do I need a grocery list when the list spans beyond 3 items, because I can remember sports scores and statistics like nobody's business and movie lines. But if the grocery list gets past 3 things, I need an actual list because I'm going to forget it. But I'm notorious for always bringing home something that's not on the list. Now, sometimes it's a treat like ice cream, or sometimes it's just like, hey, I know we're out of bananas, it's not on the list. So sometimes it's not always good, but that's going to go by the wayside. I know it's become very commonplace for people our age to have multiple streams of income, multiple jobs, some people working their regular 8 to 5, then going to a second job, then trying to have something on the side or nights or weekends. In your experience with your friend group, with your peer group, is a lot of that conversation being had?
Yeah, just to make it today. I don't know anybody that lives alone or makes it just on one income. Unless, I guess there are some that have really set themselves up well and are in an industry where they make a high dollar figure. But even then, you know, they don't live as though they make a high dollar figure because it's just not possible. It's just not feasible. Nobody's buying new cars. It's really hard. And we live in the treat yourself culture, where it's common that's your excuse to do something kind for yourself when you shouldn't need an excuse. You know, we're letting normal self-care things or normal fun activities go just so that you can make it day to day and live paycheck to paycheck.
I know from experience it is no fun to have creditors calling you. It is no fun to be behind on bills or a mortgage or having anything like that. But it does seem like it's more and more commonplace. And even just within the past few months of having like just very frank and open conversations with friends and my brother-in-laws and stuff like that, like the friends that are professionals in their industry that have been there a decade plus, like at this point, just not feeling like, because of the cost of living, like their salary, their sometimes 2-income household isn't enough. And it's not like I know from experience, they're not living like like princes. They're not having 3 Disney vacations a year. They're saving up and trying to pay cash for big expenses, and they're not living with a lot of debt. It's just becoming harder and harder. And I think I ran across another interesting article about millennials, and I think we kind of fall in a gap generation. I think we've had this talk before, but it's like millennials trust AI less because it's been invented in our lifetime, but trust it less when it comes to financial situations in particular. I think there's some good and some bad to be said from that, because you could run some calculations and some figures, but I don't know how that plays into like being able to have some kind of supplemental income to ride along with what else is going. And I don't know, for a lot of people, they probably feel stuck in their current situation.
Probably. I do think something good that came from lockdown and everyone having to be at home was that experiences and big vacations, those all went to the wayside. And I think we kind of went back to the heart of spending time and the value of just being together. And with that comes less expense, or expenses in a different way. And that's been really great for my family. It's not so much keeping up with the Joneses. It's back to the basics of spending time together. And I think because that precedent had already been set, we'd already gone to that. Now in the time of kind of volatile money and lack of money and high inflation and just unknown future, there isn't that that fear of missing out by not doing the large ticket items or doing those kinds of things. And I think that that's been really helpful and encouraging, even just in this community. Kids are at the parks, there are kids riding up and down the streets on their bikes. You know, you walk the dog and you see your neighbors on the porch, and it feels very what now would be old America. And I think that that's been really great for the financial market, personally, the financial circumstance, because there isn't that pressure to spend that money or find that money so you can spend it to fulfill whatever it is you're looking to fulfill.
If only we knew some financial advisors who could maybe write an article on this topic and, like, you know, help some people our age out a little bit with some information about how to either cut cost or, you know, other opportunities that are available. That's not a listicle BuzzFeedy type situation. I think I know a couple of those guys.
We might have some connections.
All right, we're gonna have to round them up and get an article written. Thanks for humoring us today. I know this wasn't the normal podcast, but something that I think certainly needs to be talked about as the next generation is looking for what it looks like to take care of their parents and still raise kids and possibly put them through school, or like whatever that looks like. Just it feels like a lot of heavy finances right now. So if you want to talk through any of that with your beneficiaries, I'm sure we can round up a financial advisor to help facilitate that conversation. So thanks for humoring us today on a topic that's a little out of the norm. So did you have anything else to add?
I don't think so. That felt very heavy.
It did.
And today it feels heavy.
Yeah.
But I think that with planning and with that checklist, you can push out of that and you can save and set yourself up. So I'm not afraid of what the future looks like. I just know it will be drastically different than even what we plan for today for our clients. And that's okay. Just trying to stay ahead of it is the goal.
And sometimes just an extra set of eyes on the situation is what's needed. And again, I think we can round up a few people who will certainly take extra look at what you've got going on. So for any follow-up or any questions on today's episode, feel free to give us a call, 815-918-4727. Until next time, keep digging in.
This was Digging In Podcast, presented by Rooted Wealth Advisors.